lots of reasons that products are replaced for not only being broken beyond repair, but maybe a loss of functionality or there's nothing wrong with them at all. We can see that a lot of products, and I think these numbers are quite high, especially, for example, smartphones, 69% is discarded while actually still functioning or maybe having a minor repair. So I think these numbers really emphasize the importance of studying consumer replacement behavior and how this process comes into mind of the consumer when you have the decision to buy a new one or maybe use it longer or consider a repair. So when considering this, we decided to look into the psychological process of product replacement. And we did this from a behavior perspective, and we looked into a lot of literature. What we actually saw in this literature that was a clear overview of this process was actually missing. So we decided to create this. And also what we saw in what we concluded from the literature was that during replacement decision making, a value trade-off is made by the consumer. And this is a trade-off between the value of the owned product you have in possession and the value of the new product. And so these are compared. So let's try to go to the next slide. Yeah. But how do you define product value? I think this is important to know what is the value of a product. So we looked into literature of values, and we stumbled upon the theory of Seth, and he defined value in 1991. Consumption values of products as a product can provide a functional value. This is the suction power, for example, of a vacuum cleaner. But a product can also have an emotional value, for example, as a snuggle that has to you from your childhood. You feel a personal bond with it. Furthermore, a product can provide epistemic value. This is a new feature that could be included, for example, in a new product like a foldable screen, and you are very curious on how this works, and yeah, people want to try out new things. So this is the epistemic value products can provide. But also products can have a social value. For example, if you have a product of a certain brand, you belong to a certain group, and you want to be part of this community. And the last one is conditional value, and this is more about the context. So, for example, you move to a different house, and it's very difficult for you to take along your washing machine, or you expand your family, you have a child, and it's getting too small. So the washing machine is still functioning, but you have other needs externally that cause you to replace this product. However, it's also important to mention that product value is not static. It changes over time. And I think here in this graph is a nice example of the value of smartphone mapped over time of 4 familiar brands. And you can see that in a period of 24 months, the initial value drops between 70 to 80%. So this is a very big drop in the value. And we call this value like mental accounting. So over time, consumers in their minds mentally write off their products. And then after 24 months, if there's an economical incentive, like a nice deal for a new product, or maybe a psychological factor, like a new desire, a new trend, like the foldability of the phone appears, then the value is relatively lower and you are more likely to replace it. So, as I said in the beginning, we wanted to sort of map this and create a framework to grasp this decision-making process. And it may now seem like a lot, but I will briefly talk you through it, how we envision this framework. So in the middle, we have the trade-off between the mental book value of the owned product you have in possession and the expected value and cost of the new product. And during replacement decision-making, this trade-off is made between the values here that are shown. But this value depreciation is influenced by repeated use and satiation you have with the product, and also can be influenced by promotions of new devices, which eventually cause you to either retain or replace the product. Furthermore, there are also strategies to support new product value, such as the new technologies or marketing efforts. So I think what's very important to conclude from this framework we developed is that if we keep the value of the initial value of the product that is in possession as high as possible during its lifetime, then the eventual trade-off is more likely to result in a retention. So, but luckily in literature, there were already some pointers for strategies to support the own product value. And in my vision, we mapped like 4 important strategies to extend lifetimes here. So the first one is to stimulate the product attachment. So to stimulate emotional bonding with products is quite important to keep the value as high as possible. Also, it's important, it can be good to sustain the aesthetics of the product. So, for example, by using gracefully aging materials, such as leather or wood, so they remain aesthetically pleasing over time or even become more beautiful. Another way to extend the lifetimes is to stimulate product care and maintenance. And also you can consider repair to be part of this. To ensure that the functionality is sustained most optimally. And also a nice benefit of repair is that you create this emotional bonding with the product because you interact with it and you cared for it, which will result in perhaps a higher value if the repair was a nice experience, of course. And then the fourth one is to enable upgradability. And I think this is also an important one to keep the epistemic, like the newness of the product high, and that it can spark you again and sort of breathe new life in the product you already own. So this was the first part of the talk I want to share with you. And now I would like to go a bit more in depth about the studies on repair, because we saw that this is also very important for lifetime extension. And I think we can emphasize it with these numbers here. Because at the moment, we saw in a study, or my supervisors did this survey study, which showed that when we look at the considerations for repair smartphones, vacuum cleaners, TVs, and washing machines, they are at the moment very low. So most of people do not even consider a repair for these types of products when they are partially malfunctioning. I think especially TVs is very high, but even washing machines is more than half. So we looked into different models which can potentially change this non-repair behavior, and we decided to use the theory of planned behavior for this first experimental study we set up. So the theory of planned behavior, I don't know, maybe you're a bit familiar with it, maybe not. I will shortly explain it a bit to you. It's used to understand and predict human behaviors. And what it basically shows is that a person's attitude towards the behavior, in our case, the repair, and together with subjective norms of the society, attitudes towards the repair, and the perceived behavior control. This means the perceived ability to performing repair. Altogether lead towards an intention to act and eventually will result in the targeted behavior, the repair behavior in our case. So we can say the stronger the intention to perform this repair behavior, the more likely the repair behavior will actually be performed. So when looking at how we can influence consumers' behavior by design, we especially found this perceived control very interesting because it's conceptually related to perceived self-efficacy, which is sort of the can-do mentality. And as I said before, what we also see in literature is that currently repairability of consumers is rather low. We saw here a nice opportunity to see if we can increase the can-do mentality of consumers, the feeling of I can do this, I can repair this, if this would result in a higher intention and eventually a repair behavior. But we also need to take into account that for some products, consumers are more likely to turn to professional repairers. For example, for products such as a washing machine, which is technically a bit more complex and also relatively more expensive. So your consumers would be more likely to spend some money to have a product repaired compared to products that are less complex. And they have a relatively low purchase price compared to what the price of a professional repair would be. And then we think this a vacuum cleaner is an example of a product like this. So we took this into account in our study when we investigated the willingness to repair, and we decided to use a fault indication as a way to improve the self-efficacy for repair. So what we did it between subjects design. We divided two groups, one showing a product, and I show here an example of a washing machine, but we use more products without a fault indication, and a product, a group that we showed with the fault indication. So actually what we assumed was that when you know what is causing the failure, people would feel more in control about the situation and how to act upon it. And actually our results were quite promising, especially as we already expected for products that consumers are, in our eyes, unlikely to consult a repair professional for. So we did the study for 4 products, and what we saw was that for a vacuum cleaner, a stick vacuum cleaner, and for a coffee maker, especially for the coffee maker, there was a very strong increase in likeliness to repair simply by showing an indication of what was wrong. And in our model, we saw that this result was mediated by an increased level of self-efficacy. So for all these 3 products, the self-efficacy was increased, like the can-do mentality was higher by this fault indication. For the washing machine, this was not the case. But we said this is because consumers are relatively more likely to have it professionally repaired. So this was our first experiment. And as I said in the beginning, we also looked into the effects of modularity on repair behaviors. So we decided to conduct a similar approach for the study. So we also did a between subject experimental setup. And we looked for this study first at washing machines and smartphones, and we presented them in the same way using the same picture, but in one condition we explained like this is a conventional or we didn't say anything about modularity. We did not say it's conventional. We didn't say anything about the modularity, And in the other condition, we said this product is modular. It's more easy to replace the components, and therefore the repairability is increased. So the results of this study actually showed that if a product is modular, there is an increased general willingness to repair. And you can see that here in the means. These were the scores on a 1 to 7 point Likert scale. You can see that if a product was modular, here the washing machine was significantly higher than when it was a conventional washing machine. And especially for smartphones, it was a steep increase when a product was modular. However, what we also saw was that for the likeliness to repair it yourself, it remained rather low on a scale from 1 to 5. While for the likeliness to consider a repair professional, surprisingly, the modularity really also increased their likeliness to repair. Well, this is actually a bit contradicting, because in literature often it's suggested that modularity really supports the self-repair, like takes the consumer in charge to conduct this. So we find this quite interesting, and we sort of concluded that simply like a product being modular is not enough for consumers to actually act upon it and repair it themselves. So what we concluded is that consumers really need more support than simply a product being technically modular and repairable. They need more guidance, they need more support. We want to further investigate this. What would stimulate them to actually act upon it themselves? So we set up a next additional round of this study by looking at 2 different types of facilitating cues to stimulate the do-it-yourself repair behavior of modular products. So we decided to use 4 conditions and only look at the smartphones in this case. So in one condition, we simply showed no cues. And in the second condition, we showed like a nudge on the outside, indicating how to open up the product. And in the third condition, we showed like an icon on the inside, indicating where is which component. And in the fourth condition, we showed both. Like we showed that the product is broken, but it has a notch on the outside and it has icons on the inside, explaining how you can find the faulty component and how to replace it. And you can look it up on the website. So, and we presented, like in each condition, we presented like a smartphone had a decreased battery capacity, and it needs to repair to fix it. So you might be interested what came out of it. I will show it to you in the next slides. Actually, only the cue on the inside had a significant effect on the willingness to repair it yourself. So the notch on the outside, indicating how to open up, was not enough for them to actually repair it. And this is how we defined the cues in our scenarios we presented to the participants. And you can see here that for the inside cue, they were also like linked to the website, and you can find a picture how to open it, and the battery component is indicated by an icon. For the outside cue, it was added that it had a notch visible on the outside, only indicating how to open it up. So we thought about this and discussed, and what we sort of concluded from it is that for stimulating, for modularity in itself, it really stimulates the general willingness to repair it. But if you want to stimulate self-repairs, do-it-yourself repairs for modular products, the consumer really needs more guidance in how to conduct it, and needs to be able to envision himself doing it, like showing an open a picture of an open device, like, okay, this is how it works. This is how I can do it. Now I can envision myself to repair it, and I will be more intended to act upon it. So, as a concluding, I'm already at the end of my presentation. So, as a concluding, all the information I brought to you, I know it's a lot. I have briefly summarized it on this slide. So, first of all, the main message is if you want to extend product lifetime, a product value needs to remain as high as possible throughout its entire lifetime. And we have 4 suggestions as I presented them to you, like stimulating the attachments, sustaining the aesthetics, stimulating the product care, repair, maintenance, and enable upgradability to remain the value as long as possible. And specifically for design for repair, I would really stress to not only look at the technical aspects of repairability, like the physical properties to make a product repairable, but it should also be about guiding the consumers in their repair experience if you want to stimulate them to repair it themselves. And I think design interventions such as a fault indication can really increase the consumer's ability. And if we look really at design strategies such as modularity, so design, like default indication is some addition to a design, but the modularity is really like intrinsically the design itself. Designers, we recommend to also look into the guiding process, the facilitating cues that are needed. So, thank you a lot for your attention. Yeah, these were results from some of the studies I did for my PhD, and the framework is presented in the first paper. And here, this is a conference paper I wrote about the repair, and there's a journal paper in the process currently. But these are the 2 references I would point to you. And the study about modularity, I hoped, or I intend to present it at the Plate 2023 conference. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And after that, it will be also available online in their proceedings. So thank you a lot for your attention. I could only see Elise's face, so I will now stop sharing, and I'm curious if you have any questions or remarks.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Renske. Sorry that you could only see my face.
Okay.
There's already questions. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on whether this principle of keeping products upgradable and also keeping them aesthetic over their lifetime, how can these be linked with business models for companies? Because I think often the business model of a company is that the products degrade and then they can sell a new product to the customer. So how do you see a link between those?
Yeah, that's a very important point you address. And this is also quite a big challenge nowadays, to also make companies like enthusiastic about having a long lifetime, and also to, I think there's really a need for research to look into how can we make this repair interesting for companies to conduct. And I think there was this proposal, I don't know if you are familiar with it, about the repair services to really stimulate consumers with legislation. And I think legislation is really needed in this case to make a change. But I'm not only like an advocate for legislation to stimulate industries to adopt this repair. I would also encourage research to look more into how can you make this interesting for business. So in my research, I really look into the repair behavior, and I have some ideas, but I would really encourage research also to address this issue, like how can we make repair service more profitable for them? Because in my opinion, if companies see the profit they can make from it, they will change. They will make it work. They're smart enough to design then around that. But it's an important issue. Yeah.
Thanks.
Now you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Renske, for a very interesting presentation. I think it's one of the things that, although I'm not an expert, I am a consumer. So I think many consumers are struggling with this type of aspect of product. Everybody is frustrated by inkjet printers that just break down. They're made to break down, basically, so that you can buy new ones and new cartridges, etc. One of the things that I was thinking of is that, for me personally, as a consumer, let's say, not as an expert, like I said, but for example, if you have things like vacuum cleaners, they always get dirty. There's always, let's say, in my house at least, there's dog hairs that are kind of blocking the whole thing. If you make products in such a way that it's easy, let's say, to take apart those pieces, to clean them, which some producers actually do, that is very, for me, that is an aspect that I will take into account when I buy a new one, basically. So if I have a good experience with one of the things, that you can easily clean them, easily take them apart. So that is really a benefit that I'm looking for in a product. And I don't think the product, if you do that, the product doesn't necessarily has to be more expensive, or it's just a matter of how you design it. So there's quick wins there, I think, also for if producers can actually advertise also in that way, that it in fact, and maybe you can also have scores of consumers that can help out. I mean, you have all these scores nowadays when you buy a product, that people can have their opinions about it. But this could be a separate thing that could be listed somewhere, or could be the information about it could be organized somehow. So I'm just wondering how you see that.
Yeah, I think you really almost explained like the idea behind the Prompts project that we are part of. Like this label also would include aspects of maintenance and how easy it would be to maintain. And also maybe linked to Maarten's comment on how you can encourage also business to be interested in this lifetime and extending. When you look, for example, at the effect of the energy efficiency label of products, really on the new developments of manufacturers to make it really more energy efficient, like being part of a competitive advantage if you have a very efficient product. We think that providing this label, like indicating, hey, it will last for a long time, in one way, it will sort of make consumers aware that this should be part of their decision-making process, and also allow them to be part of it. Because I did an interview study with Dutch consumers. It's not part of this presentation, but we asked them, like, did you take into account the lifetime when buying this product? And they said, no. How can I make an estimation? I can only base it on my gut feeling, or maybe previous experience I have with brands, but they really didn't have the tools or the tricks to do it. And this label would really help for either take consumers, like, included in their decision-making process, but also to stimulate the manufacturer to develop in a way that they are competitively advantaged because they have a high score on this label. So this is also a bit related to Maarten's question on how can you sort of encourage business to also move towards this lifetime extension, making it interesting. Yeah, but it's really in the premature phase still. We are developing now the criteria, because if you look at the energy efficiency label, you can really measure like how much energy it costs for one cycle for a washing machine, for example, to consume energy. But for expectations about the lifetime, yeah, it's more difficult to predict because it's in the future and depends on many factors.
Yeah, I think that this labeling thing is a good thing, but I also think that maybe there's room for, let's say, a grassroots type of organization that just builds a website and just takes products apart or has customer reviews specifically aimed at these types of aspects. There might be a niche for that.
Yeah. I know iFixit. I don't know if you are familiar with it. That's really related to repair, but yeah, very good idea to also expand it to maintenance and really sort of stimulate consumers to also to take care of their products.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have another question from Bartholomeus.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the nice presentation. I have a question just for me to kind of put this into context. Today you talked a lot about the willingness to repair based on consumer behavior. If you put this into context of price of new product, price of repair, price of spare components, as well as producer behavior, so the act of marketing, the lack of marketing, the act of inducing a need, how do you see consumer behavior in this context? How relevant is it?
I think it's very relevant because all these factors really influence the behavior, as you mentioned, the costs, the marketing efforts, the new developments. For my research, I decided to specifically focus on this ability, that lack of ability. For me as a designer, I can make recommendations for legislations about the costs of spare part. For example, you can make sure that they offer it for a specific price. May be difficult, but at least for a significant amount of time, the consumer can have it, and they should offer it on their websites, for example, which is often also not the case at the moment, or they only provide it to professional repairers, not for consumers. So I think a lot of legislation, unfortunately, is needed, but there are promising developments in the right to repair movement. As I said, for the behavior, the legislation is sort of can be stimulated to behavior change in that aspect. And I think it's also very important. It's not only the ability that should be increased. There should be other, like in this in this system of stimulating behavior, there are a lot of other factors. But for my research, I specifically focus on the consumer itself to empower it. And hopefully it can sort of be one step towards this more, sort of societal feeling of it's good to use products longer, because now you really see this throwaway attitude and repair is really not considered. So I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, I think, can I maybe, just for me to understand a short follow-up, how would the price influence all these factors you looked at right now? Like, what was your base assumption? You must have told the people you asked, the cost of a new product is 1,000 euros, the cost to repair is 10 euros. And if you manipulate it, the cost is 50 and 500 and so on, and the access to repairability. Have you kind of done a multifactorial analysis, what the combined effects could look like? It's probably much more complex, and I'm not the economist, but would just be interesting to know.
Yeah, we really thought hard about it. Should we include price? But there are so many studies that said price is the most important factor. So eventually we decided to not include it, like a specific price. But for the final study I'm planning to conduct, I'm planning to include price. And therefore I did a pre-test to sort of estimate what would be an acceptable price to repair a product for a consumer, to include it in that way. yeah, I think there are already many studies that indicate that price is important, and yeah, but we also see that the ability and other factors are important. So I did not specifically factor it in the experiment, but it is always in my mind that this I think you were right. It's a crucial thing. Yeah.
Thank you a lot.
Any more questions? I have some. I was wondering, I was a bit surprised in the strategies to extend the lifetime that you presented, the 4 blocks, emotional, attachment and thing. I'm surprised there's nothing about understanding the value of a product. I mean, these days, because of the throwaway mentality, we forget about how much energy it costs or all the precious components in a product. But I mean, that's valid for a cell phone, but it's also valid for having tomatoes in the winter. We just forget that it's just not normal to have such a high-tech thing in the hand or a tomato in the winter. Isn't it something that we could stimulate to remind ourselves, okay, this is a really high value thing, it's not just to throw away? And is it something I was missing from your 4 blocks?
Yeah, I think that's good that you addressed this. The 4 blocks were based on existing literature, what's defined in existing literature. And actually, also in the interview study, I did not share the insights today because I had simply not the time for it. We asked them, consumers, because we didn't see this in literature written down, the effect. What would you take it into consideration if you would have more knowledge to the lifetime expectations? And actually they said they would say, yeah, well, if I would have more idea about the impact of lengthening the lifetime of this product, I would take it into account. But currently I cannot really, as you address it, make it take it into account. But I have to admit this was only a qualitative insight. It's not confirmed that this will actually also impact the decision making of the consumer. So for these 4 strategies, we know that consumers, if they have more bond, they will prolong the lifetime. If they have, if they care more for a product, it will also have this bond, create this bond. But for the environmental aspects, for lifetime specifically, we cannot really state it will have an effect. It's not proven. So yeah, therefore it would not appear in these 4 strategies. But I have a good feeling it could. So, but they're simply not in my knowledge at the moment of writing. There was no sort of proof that saying it will last longer, that would be yeah. So this is a gap. So if you want to jump into it, I would encourage you. And yeah.
Thank you. And I was wondering, because now you focus also on the on self-repair and people repairing themselves, the can-do mentality, but isn't this addressing a limited part of the population? I mean, you have to trust yourself, trust that you have enough knowledge, and you need the time for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we really looked into a really broad sample of people. Like our demographic factors were aging from I think 25, because that's the time that you can own a washing machine yourself. You are not living till 99. So I think it really reflects the average, or sample really reflects the average consumer. Yeah. It's not really like a specific group that's more interested in repair. It was really a general, reflecting a general population.
But do you think that it could be a blockage that people, yeah, that to increase the rate of repair, that you should consider several strategies? Self-repair is one, but I mean, professional repair is most certainly one for people not having the knowledge or time up, or maybe they're afraid of, if they break the thing while repairing it, then they don't have anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So,
it's just
so can you repeat? I don't know if I understand your question correctly. Can you repeat it?
well, I was just wondering why you choose to focus now on self-repair mostly in your research. And I was wondering, because this is concerning a limited fraction of the population that think they have the capability, the knowledge, and the time to do so. Yeah, that you also have to trust that you're not going to break the product, because what happens if you break it, then you don't have anything anymore. So maybe several, you have to consider several strategies, and anyway, and maybe repair cafes are an in between, but you didn't mention it in your presentation, I think, between self-repair and professional repair.
Yeah, we did sort of include it in the first study, because the professional repair product reflected like the washing machine. When we showed them without a fault indication, people were already quite had a high willingness to repair it. It did not further increase through the fault indication. So therefore, we sort of assumed that for those products, consumers were already more likely to have it professionally repaired. And what we wanted to focus on was like these products, like coffee makers, quite cheap, vacuum cleaners. Consumers really do not consider professional repairs. So we really decided to focus on those products and the effect of a fault indication on those products. And because we did an experimental setup, I'm aware we could not include the entire spectrum of possibilities to repair, like repair cafes. That's a limitation of experiments, but it's also like a benefit that you really look at one specific component and can really say like this fault indication can really increase this. So I'm not saying that repair cafes is not a good option. It's simply the method of the study that only allow us to look at one specific effect. And that was a decision that was made. But I'm also an advocate for repair cafes. I think they can also really boost the repair. Yeah.
Thank you. Has anybody else another question? No? Now then, I would like to thank you, Renske, for your presentation today. Very, very interesting. Yeah, maybe we have some exchanges about repair at a later stage. Also with this white paper we're writing, but we're already in contact with Ruud, your supervisor. But yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, to all have a very good day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any more questions, you can always contact me.
Thanks.
We will.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.